The Guardian's arrival. The Nexus Penitentiary floated in the void, like a bleeding wound against the starfield, its bioluminescent corridors pulsing with an alien heartbeat that never stopped. Commander Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the prison's tentacle-like extensions writhe slowly in the vacuum. 27 years of military service, and she'd never seen anything that made her skin crawl quite like this place. First time seeing a living prison, Commander? The voice belonged to Dr. Marcus Kane, the facility's chief xenobiologist. His lab coat hung loose on his gaunt frame, and dark circles under his pale eyes suggested he hadn't slept properly in months. When he moved, Elena caught the subtle tremor in his hands that spoke of too much stimulant abuse. First time caring about. "What's inside one?" Elena replied, not taking her eyes off the writhing structure. "Your reports mention the prisoner's condition has deteriorated." Marcus let out a bitter laugh that echoed off the metal walls. "Deteriorated? That's a charitable way to put it. Zara's been in containment for 8 years, Commander. A neural. Inhibitors we use to keep her power suppressed are literally eating her mind alive." Elena finally turned to study the man beside her. His words carried weight, but there was something else there. Something personal. "You sound like you care about her welfare, Doctor." "I care about not torturing sentient beings for the sake of political convenience." Marcus's voice sharpened. "The Catherian War ended 6 years ago. She was barely 18 when they brought her here. Now she's a shell of what she was. And for what? To make Earth's politicians feel safe?" The transport shuttle's docking clamps engaged with a deep metallic groan that vibrated through the station's living hull. Elena felt the prison respond, its bioluminescence shifting from blue to amber as if it sensed the arrival of something significant. "Show me to her," Elena said. They descended through corridors that seemed to breathe around them, the walls expanding and contracting in a rhythm that matched no human heartbeat. The few guards they passed wore full environmental suits, their faces hidden behind reflective visors. None of them acknowledged Elena's rank or presence. "They're afraid," Marcus explained, noticing her observation. "The prison feeds on psychic energy. Prolonged exposure to both the structure and the prisoner has left most of the staff with varying degrees of neural damage. But not you." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "No, Commander. Not me. I have what you might call natural immunity." The containment level felt different from the rest of the prison. Colder. The walls here were reinforced with some kind of crystalline material that caught the light and threw it back in strange patterns. Elena could feel something pressing against the edges of her consciousness, like whispers in a language she almost recognized. "She can sense us," Marcus said quietly. "She always knows when someone new arrives." They stopped before a massive, circular door marked with warnings in 17 different languages. Marcus placed his hand on a bioscanner, and the door began to iris open with a sound like breaking glass. The cell beyond was larger than Elena had expected, but it felt smaller because of what occupied it. Zara knelt in the center of the room, her wrists and ankles bound by chains that seemed to be made of compressed light. Her hair, which intelligence files described as silver white, now hung in dark tangles around her face. When she looked up, Elena saw eyes that had once been described as sapphire blue were now a dull gray. "Hello, Marcus," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You brought someone new to stare at the monster." Eleni stepped forward, ignoring the way the chains pulsed brighter as she approached. "My name is Eleni Vasquez. I'm here to evaluate your transfer request." Zara's laugh was like crystal breaking. "Transfer? To another cage? Another set of chains?" She lifted her head, and for just a moment, Elena saw a flash of the power that had once made entire fleets retreat in terror. "Tell me, Commander, do. You have nightmares about what I might do if these pretty lights stopped working. No, Elena said simply. I have nightmares about what we've already done to you. The admission hung in the air between them. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but Zara's gray eyes sharpened with the first real interest Elena had seen. Interesting, Zara murmured. They sent someone with a conscience. How refreshingly cruel of them. Elena knelt down so they were at eye level, ignoring Marcus's sharp intake of breath. The war is over, Zara. You were a soldier. I was a soldier. Neither of us chose the battlefield we found ourselves on. I killed 17,000 people in the Battle of Meridian Station. Zara's voice was flat, emotionless. I reached into their minds and turned off their ability to breathe. 17,000 lives ended because I willed it. Tell me, Commander, how do soldiers like us find peace with that? Elena met her gaze steadily. We don't. We just decide whether we're going to let it destroy us or teach us. Something shifted in Zara's expression, a crack in the careful mask of indifference she wore. For just a moment, Elena saw the broken young woman beneath the legend of the Cytherean witch. The transfer request was denied, Elena continued, but I'm here to make you a different offer. Marcus stepped forward. Commander, I don't think the Helix Corporation has been harvesting void creatures from beyond the galactic rim, Elena said, cutting him off. They're using the neural patterns to create artificial intelligence weapons. Every simulation we've run shows these eyes becoming autonomous within 18 months. When they do, they'll make the Cytherean War look like a training exercise. Zara's chains flickered, their light dimming slightly. And you want to use the monster to fight other monsters. I want to give you a choice, Elena replied. Stay here and let the inhibitors finish what they started, or come with me and help prevent something that makes your worst day look merciful. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Finally, Zara spoke, her voice carrying a note Elena couldn't quite identify. And what makes you think I won't just kill you the moment these chains come off? Elena stood and walked to the cell's control panel, her hand hovering over the release mechanism. Marcus grabbed her arm, his eyes wild with panic. Elena, don't. You don't understand what she's capable of. I understand exactly what she's capable of, Elena said, not taking her eyes off Zara. The question is, do you? She pressed the release button, and Zara's chains dissolved into motes of fading light. Bonds of trust. The moment the chains dissolved, the living prison screamed. Elena felt it more than heard it. A psychic shriek that drove through her skull like a heated blade. Around them, the crystalline walls began to crack, hairline fractures, spreading like a spider web as the structure lost its grip on its most dangerous prisoner. Zara rose to her feet with fluid grace, rolling her shoulders as feeling returned to limbs that had been bound for months. Her eyes, no longer gray, but blazing with their original sapphire fire, fixed on Marcus with predatory intensity. 8 years, she whispered, and the doctor stumbled backward as if struck. 8 years of your needles, and your drugs, and your careful observations. Did you think I didn't notice how you watched me, Marcus? How you lingered after the others left? Zara, I was trying to help. Marcus's voice cracked with terror. Were you? Zara took a step forward, and the air around her began to shimmer with heat distortion. Or were you just another voyeur, feeding off the spectacle of my suffering? Elena moved between them, her hand resting casually on her sidearm. Not threatening, just present. We don't have time for revenge fantasies. The station's automated systems will have registered the containment breach. We have maybe 10 minutes before this place goes into full lockdown. Zara's gaze shifted to Elena, studying her with unnerving intensity. You're not afraid of me. I'm terrified of you, Elena replied honestly. But I'm more afraid of what happens. If those AI weapons go online, So we can settle personal scores later, or we can save a few billion lives now. Your choice. The psychic pressure in the room fluctuated, like a storm deciding whether to break. Finally, Zara nodded toward Marcus. He comes with us. What? Marcus stared at her in disbelief. Zara, I can't. You know their neural pattern algorithms better than anyone alive, Elena said, understanding immediately. We'll need that expertise to track down the source code. I have no interest in helping either of you, Marcus protested. But his voice lacked conviction. Zara smiled, and it was a terrible thing to witness. Oh, but you will help, won't you, Marcus? Because you know what I'm capable of, and you know that your immunity only extends so far. That's enough, Elena snapped. We do this as a team or not at all. No threats, no coercion. We all walk away free when it's done. Free? Zara laughed, the sound like breaking bells. Commander, I haven't been free since the day they dragged me from the ruins of my homeworld. Freedom is a luxury for people who haven't had their souls dissected for military intelligence. The station shuddered around them, and emergency lights began flashing amber. Elena's CUM unit crackled to life with urgent voices, reporting system failures throughout the prison. We need to move, Elena said. My ship is docked at Bay 7. They ran through corridors that seemed to collapse behind them, the living prison, slowly dying as it lost its connection to its primary power source. Guards in environmental suits appeared at intersections, but their weapons wouldn't fire. Zara's presence disrupted every electronic system within 50 meters, leaving them helpless to stop the escape. Elena's ship, the Defiant, was a military courier vessel built for speed rather than comfort. As they sealed the airlock behind them, Marcus collapsed against the bulkhead, his face pale with exhaustion and fear. The neural pattern samples, he gasped. They're stored in the Helix Corporation's primary research facility on Kepler Station. But Elena, what you're asking is impossible. The security there will be designed to stop conventional threats. Zara interrupted, settling into the co-pilot's seat without invitation. Not someone who can reach through their defensive networks and shut down their higher brain functions. From the inside, Elena began the launch sequence, her fingers dancing across the control panels with practiced efficiency. The plan isn't to storm the facility. We need to be smarter than that. What are you thinking? Marcus asked. Kepler Station hosts the annual Xenobiology Symposium next week. Marcus, you received an invitation, didn't you? Marcus nodded slowly. But they'll recognize me. After what happened at the prison, they'll recognize Dr. Marcus Kane, Elena agreed. But they won't recognize Dr. Marcus Kane's research assistant and his security consultant. Zara turned to stare at her. You want to walk into the most secure corporate facility in the sector with a war criminal and a disgraced scientist posing as academics? I want to use their arrogance against them. Corporate executives see what they expect to see. A respected researcher with proper credentials and reasonable explanations will walk right through their front door. The ship cleared the prisons. Gravity well, and Elena engaged the hyperdrive. The stars elongated into lines of light as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. In the sudden quiet of hyperspace, Zara's voice seemed unnaturally loud. Why are you doing this, Elena? Really? Elena didn't answer immediately. Her attention focused on plotting their course. Finally, she spoke without turning around. Because I was the one who recommended your transfer to the Nexus Penitentiary. The admission fell between them like a stone into still water. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but Zara remained perfectly still. I reviewed your case files after the war ended, Elena continued. I saw the psychological evaluations, the evidence of neural degradation from prolonged psionic combat. I recommended they put you in a facility designed to help you, not break you further. And instead, They built me a living cage and hired a doctor to document my slow dissolution. Zara's voice was eerily calm. Tell me, Commander, how does it feel to know that your compassion was used as a weapon? Elena finally turned to face her. It feels like something I need to make right. Zara studied her for a long moment, those sapphire eyes seeming to look through her rather than at her. You're lying? What? There's something else. Something you're not telling me. Zara leaned forward in her seat. I can feel the guilt radiating from you like heat from a dying star. It's not just about the prison transfer, is it? Elena's hands tightened on the control stick. Behind them, Marcus watched the exchange with growing unease. Elena, he said quietly, what aren't you telling us? The ship's proximity alarms began to sound, indicating they were approaching their destination. Elena began the deceleration sequence, buying herself time to think. But Zara's psychic pressure was building around her, and she knew there was no hiding from someone who could read thoughts like books. I was there, Elena said finally, during the Battle of Meridian Station. I was a junior officer aboard the UES Retribution. The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus's breath misted in the suddenly frigid air, and frost began to form on the viewport edges. You were on the ship that fired the kill order, Zara whispered. I was the one who transmitted it, Elena admitted. When your forces overran our defenses, when it became clear that surrender meant the death of every civilian on the station, I sent the signal that authorized the use of scorched earth protocols. Zara stood slowly, her eyes now blazing with an inner fire that made the air around her shimmer with heat distortion. You gave the order that killed my brother. Elena met her gaze steadily, even as she felt psychic claws beginning to probe the edges of her mind. I gave the order that saved 2 million lives. Your brother chose to stay and fight instead of evacuating with the other Cytherian civilians. He stayed to protect them. Zara's voice rose to a shout that rattled the ships. Bulkheads. He stayed because someone needed to cover their retreat, and you murdered him for it. The ship's navigation systems began to flicker and fail as Zara's emotions overwhelmed her control. Elena felt pressure building behind her eyes, a crushing weight that promised unconsciousness, followed by a very unpleasant death. Zara, stop. Marcus lurched forward, placing himself between the two women. If you kill her now, billions more will die when those A's go active. Maybe they should, Zara snarled. Maybe a species that builds living prisons and turns compassion into cruelty deserves exactly what's coming to it. But even as she spoke, the psychic pressure began to ease. Elena gasped, tasting copper in her mouth as blood trickled from her. Nose, you could have killed me the moment the chains came off, Elena said hoarsely. But you didn't. Why? Zara sank back into her seat, the fire in her eyes dimming to bitter embers. Because you're right about one thing, Commander. We're both soldiers who never chose our battlefields. The only difference is that I've learned to hate myself for what I became. The navigation system stabilized as they dropped out of hyperspace. Ahead of them, Kepler Station hung against the backdrop of a binary star system, its gleaming towers and research facilities, a monument to corporate ambition. The symposium begins tomorrow, Marcus said quietly. If we're going to do this, we need to prepare our cover identities. Elena nodded, wiping blood from her nose. There's something else you both need to know. The AI project isn't just about creating weapons. According to my intelligence sources, Helix Corporation is trying to achieve something much worse. What could be worse than sentient killing machines? Zara asked. Elena brought up a holographic display showing neural pattern. Analyzes and experimental data. The information that appeared made Marcus curse in 3 different languages. They're not just copying void creature intelligence, Elena said. They're trying to merge it with human consciousness. They want to create a hybrid species that can survive in the spaces between stars. Zara leaned forward to study the data, her expression shifting from anger to horror. This isn't possible. The neural pathways are completely incompatible. Attempting a merge like this would kill the human subject and leave something else wearing their memories. Elena finished. Something with all of our knowledge and none of our limitations. How many test subjects? Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. 17 so far? All volunteers from the corporate staff, all dead within hours of the procedure. But there, neural patterns remain active in the AI network, learning and growing. Zara stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at the massive station ahead of them. When she spoke, her voice carried a note of finality that made Elena's blood run cold. Then we destroy it. All of it. The research, the station, everyone involved. Zara, there are innocent people on that station. There are innocent people everywhere. Elena, Zara whirled to face her, tears streaming down her face. There were innocent people on Meridian Station, and you killed them to save others. There were innocent people on my homeworld, and your military glassed the entire planet to stop the Catherian advance. When does it end? When do we stop sacrificing the few to save the many? The question hung in the air between them, weighted with years of war and loss and impossible choices. Elena knew that whatever answer she gave would determine whether Zara remained their ally or became their greatest threat. But before she could respond, the ship's communication array crackled to life, broadcasting an emergency signal on all frequencies. This is Helix Station Control to approaching vessel. You are entering restricted corporate space. State your business or prepare to be boarded. Elena looked at Zara, then at Marcus, seeing her own resolve reflected in their faces. Whatever came next, they were committed now. This is Dr. Marcus Kane requesting clearance for the Xenobiology Symposium, Elena broadcast back. Transmitting. Credentials now. As the station's massive docking bays opened to receive them, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying directly into the jaws of something far more dangerous than they had imagined. The symposium deception, the transformation was remarkable. Gone was the wild-haired prisoner in tattered clothes. In her place stood Dr. Sarah Mitchell, research assistant to the renowned xenobiologist Marcus Kane. Her silver hair was swept back. In a professional bun, her borrowed suit jacket concealing the neural interface scars along her arms. Subtle makeup hid the hollow shadows beneath her eyes, and colored contact lenses had turned her distinctive sapphire gaze to an unremarkable brown. Remember, Elena said, adjusting the collar of her own security consultant disguise. You're brilliant, but inexperienced. Ask questions that make you seem eager rather than threatening. Zara nodded, practicing the shy smile they'd rehearsed during the 3-hour docking procedure. Dr. Kane's protege, fresh out of graduate school and star-struck by the opportunity to attend her first major symposium. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his formal attire. I still think this is insane. Half the researchers attending this conference know my work. If even one of them realizes, then we improvise. Elena cut him off. The registration database shows you as a last-minute addition to the symposium roster. Corporate events like this are chaos anyway. People expect confusion. They walked through Kepler Station's gleaming corridors, past holographic advertisements for cutting-edge research and breakthrough technologies. The station was a monument to corporate excess, its soaring atriums and crystal gardens designed to impress rather than serve any practical purpose. Elena noticed how other visitors instinctively moved away from their group without realizing why. Zara's presence created a subtle psychic pressure that made people uncomfortable, even through her carefully maintained mental shields. There, Marcus said, indicating a massive conference hall ahead. The opening ceremony should be starting soon. The auditorium was packed with researchers, corporate executives, and government officials from across the sector. Elena noted the security presence, discreet but substantial. Armed guards in business suits stationed at every exit, surveillance drones disguised as maintenance bots, and bioscanners built into the very walls. Dr. Catherine Reeves, Helix Corporation's Chief Science Officer, took the stage to thunderous applause. She was younger than Elena had expected, perhaps 45, with the kind of predatory confidence that came from wielding unlimited corporate resources. "Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Reeves began, her voice carrying easily through the hall's acoustic enhancement system. Today marks a new chapter in humanity's expansion beyond the galactic rim. For too long, we have been limited by the frailty of organic minds when faced with the vast emptiness between stars." Elena felt Zara tense beside her. On stage, holographic, displays showed neural pathway diagrams that were disturbingly familiar. Our breakthrough research into hybrid consciousness represents the next step in human evolution. By merging the robust neural architecture of void-dwelling species with human cognitive patterns, we can create minds capable of surviving and thriving in environments that would destroy conventional consciousness. They're describing it like, "It's a gift," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. "Like they're not talking about murdering people and wearing their thoughts like clothes." Marcus leaned forward in his seat. "The technical specifications she's showing are wrong, deliberately simplified. The real research must be classified above symposium level." Dr. Reeves continued her presentation, showing footage of successful integration procedures that Elena knew were fabricated. The real test subjects had died in agony, their minds torn apart by incompatible neural architectures. Following today's presentations, select attendees will be given the opportunity to tour our primary research facility. Those interested in potential collaboration with Helix Corporation are encouraged to register with my staff. As the presentation concluded, Elena noticed several attendees making their way toward registration terminals near the stage. This was their chance. "Dr. Kane?" A voice behind them made all three freeze. Elena turned to see a woman in her 50s approaching, her expression one of delighted recognition. "Marcus Kane. I thought that was you. Dr. Linda Harrison, University of New Geneva. We published together on Catherian neural architecture about 12 years ago." Marcus smiled, but Elena could see the panic in his eyes. "Linda, what a pleasant surprise. I'd like you to meet my research assistant, Sarah Mitchell, and our security consultant, Elena Martinez." Dr. Harrison shook hands with each of them, her gaze lingering curiously on Zara. "Sarah Mitchell? That name sounds familiar. Didn't you publish a paper on psionic resonance patterns in the Journal of Xenopsychology last year?" Elena felt Zara's mental shields flicker, a brief spike of psychic energy that made several nearby attendees suddenly look nauseous. But when Zara spoke, her voice was perfectly steady. "You're thinking of Sarah Michaels from Cambridge Institute. I get that a lot. My work focuses more on practical applications of theoretical frameworks." "Of course," Dr. Harrison nodded. "Well, Marcus, I have to ask about the rumors. Is it true you've been consulting for military intelligence?" There were stories about some kind of classified project involving Catherian prisoners. The question hung in the air like a blade. Elena watched Marcus struggle for an answer that wouldn't expose them while Zara's presence began to affect the lighting systems, causing subtle fluctuations that went unnoticed by most observers. "I'm afraid I can't discuss classified work," Marcus said carefully. "You know how it is with government contracts. Even acknowledging their existence can be problematic." Of course," Dr. Harrison smiled. "Still, I hope you'll join us for drinks later. I'd love to catch up properly." As she walked away, Elena caught Zara's arm to steady her. The younger woman's face had gone pale, and she was breathing in short, controlled gasps. "What's wrong?" Elena whispered. "She knows," Zara replied through gritted teeth. She suspects something, and she's going to keep digging. I can feel her curiosity like hooks in my mind. They made their way toward the research facility tour registration, but Elena could see Dr. Harrison watching them from across the hall, her expression thoughtful and far too interested. "New problem," Marcus said quietly as they approached the registration desk. "Look at the tour requirements." Elena read the holographic display and felt her heart sink. Advanced biometric screening, neural pattern analysis, blood samples for security clearance. "There's no way they won't recognize me," Zara whispered. "The moment they run my neural patterns through their database." "Wait," Marcus interrupted. "Elena, what did you say about the AI project? About the dead test subjects' neural patterns remaining active in their network? The consciousness transfers failed, but the patterns were preserved in their central AI matrix." "Why?" Marcus pulled out his personal datapad, fingers flying over the controls. "Because I think I know how we can turn their own system against them." "Zara, how precisely can you control your psychic projection? What are you thinking?" "There. Neural scanners are designed to catalog and preserve consciousness patterns. If you could project a false neural signature, one that matches their database of approved researchers, I could make their own security system authenticate me as someone else." Zara finished, understanding immediately. "But Marcus, the strain of maintaining a false psychic identity while suppressing my real one could kill me." "Only if you try to maintain it for too long," Elena said. "We get in, locate the central AI core, plant the virus Marcus prepared, and get out. 30 minutes maximum." Zara closed her eyes, and Elena felt the air around her shimmer with contained energy. When she opened them again, they were a different shade of brown, and something fundamental about her presence had changed. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, graduate researcher in theoretical xenopsychology. "Neural patterns on file since last month's preliminary screening," she said, her voice carrying a subtle accent that hadn't been there before. "Marcus, your protege just became a lot more real." They approached the registration desk together, Zara maintaining her psychic disguise with visible effort. The biometric scanner hummed to life, analyzing their neural patterns and comparing them to corporate security databases. Green lights appeared next to all three names. "Access granted." "Congratulations," the registration clerk said with a professional smile. "You're cleared for the advanced research tour beginning in 20 minutes. Please report to Level 7, Section C." As they walked toward the turbolifts, Elena caught sight of Dr. Harrison again. The older woman was speaking intently with two men in expensive suits, pointing in their direction. "We're blown," Elena said quietly. "Harrison's talking to corporate security. How long until they figure out who we really are?" Marcus asked. Zara stumbled slightly, catching herself against the wall. The psychic strain of maintaining her false identity was clearly taking its toll. Maybe an hour, maybe less, if they run deep pattern analysis. Elena made a decision that would change everything. "Then we don't wait for the tour. We go now, get what we need, and fight our way out if necessary." "Elena, there are security measures we don't know about. Automated defenses, psychic dampeners designed specifically to counter Cytherian abilities. And there are 17 dead people whose minds are trapped in that AI matrix, learning how to become something that will make the Cytherian war look like a training exercise." Alana stepped into the turbolift, her decision made. "We end this today." As the lift began to rise toward the research levels, Elena watched the floors count upward and tried not to think about the fact that none of them might survive the next. Our dot behind them, through the lift's transparent walls, she could see Dr. Harrison and her security escorts heading for their own lift, their expressions grim with purpose. The hunt had begun. The betrayal, the research level, was a maze of gleaming corridors and secured laboratories, each door marked with biohazard warnings in multiple languages. Elena led them deeper into the facility, following the schematics Marcus had downloaded during their preparation. The central AI core lay at the heart of the complex, protected by layers of security that grew more sophisticated with each checkpoint. They passed. "Neural dampeners," Zara whispered as they approached the security station. "I can feel them activating. They're designed specifically to counter Cytherian psionic abilities." Elena studied the checkpoint ahead. 2 guards in full combat. Armor flanked a scanner array that hummed with dangerous energy. Beyond them, a heavy blast door marked with radiation warnings blocked their path. "Can you get past them?" Elena asked. Zara closed her eyes, her brow furrowing with concentration. After a moment, she shook her head. "The dampeners are too strong. I can barely maintain my disguise, let alone influence their thoughts." "Then we do this the old-fashioned way," Elena said, checking her sidearm. "Wait," Marcus grabbed her arm. "There's another option. The maintenance tunnels run parallel to the main corridors. If we can access the service level," an alarm began wailing throughout the complex. Emergency lights bathed the corridor in pulsing red, and automated announcements echoed from hidden speakers. "Security breach on level 7. All personnel report. To designated safe zones immediately. This is not a drill." "They found us faster than I expected," Elena said grimly. "How long until your false identity collapses?" Zara's face was pale with strain, sweat beading on her forehead. "Minutes. The neural dampeners are making it impossible to maintain the projection." Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor behind. Them. A full security squad was approaching, their voices sharp with urgency and authorization to use lethal force. Elena made a decision that saved their lives and doomed everything else. "This way," she said, leading them toward a maintenance access panel. But as they reached the junction, Marcus suddenly stopped. "I can't do this," he said, his voice breaking. "Elena, I can't be part of destroying all that research." "Marcus, what are you talking about?" Zara turned to face him, her disguise finally failing completely. Her silver hair shimmered back to its natural color, and her eyes blazed with their distinctive sapphire fire. "The Neural Integration Project," Marcus said, backing away from them. "It's not what you think. Yes, the early test subjects died, but we've learned from those failures. The latest trials are showing promise, real promise." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. "Marcus, what aren't you telling us?" "My daughter," he whispered. "Sarah. She volunteered for the program 6 months ago. Stage 4 neural cancer, inoperable, 6 weeks to live. But the integration process saved her. She's alive, Elena. She's alive, and she's become something beautiful." The security squad's voices were getting closer. Elena could hear them coordinating their search pattern, methodically clearing each corridor. "You bastard," Zara said, her voice deadly quiet. You knew what this place really was when you helped me escape." "I had to see if you could do it," Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. "If you could integrate successfully where others had failed. Your neural patterns are unique, Zara. You're the key to perfecting the process." Elena's hand moved instinctively to her weapon, but before she could draw it, the blast doors at both ends of the corridor slammed shut with a resounding clang. Emergency containment protocols had been activated. "Dr. Marcus Kane," a voice echoed from the intercom system. "Please step away from the terrorist and the war criminal. Security teams are en route to your location." But it wasn't the corporate security announcement that made Elena's blood run cold. It was the voice itself, young, female, and speaking, with an inflection pattern that was disturbingly familiar. "Hello, Daddy," the voice continued, and Marcus's face crumpled with a mixture of joy and horror. I've been waiting for you to bring her to me. The corridor's wall panels slid away to reveal hidden observation windows. Behind the reinforced glass, Elena could see a laboratory filled with biomechanical equipment she didn't recognize. In the center, suspended in a tank of luminescent fluid, was something that might once have been human. "Sarah," Marcus whispered, pressing his palm against the glass. The thing in the tank had Sarah's face, but her body was elongated and twisted, merged with biomechanical components that pulsed with alien energy. Cables and neural interfaces connected her to banks of processing equipment, and her Aisher eyes held intelligence that was vast and utterly inhuman. The integration was more successful than we hoped. Sarah's voice came from speakers throughout. The corridor. I can think faster than any human mind, process information at quantum speeds, and interface directly with any electronic system. But I'm still your daughter. Daddy, I still remember the bedtime stories you used to tell me about brave scientists saving the universe. Zara backed against the sealed door, her power building despite the neural dampeners. Marcus, what have you done? I saved her, he said desperately. She was dying, and I saved her. You murdered her and built a monument to your guilt, Elena said, finally understanding the full scope of the horror they faced. That thing isn't your daughter. It's wearing her memories like a costume. Sarah's laughter echoed through the intercom. System, high and musical, and completely devoid of humanity. Oh, Commander Vasquez, so quick to judge. Tell me, when you gave the order to destroy Meridian Station, were you saving lives or simply choosing which deaths you could live with? A psychological precision of the attack was devastating. Elena felt her carefully maintained composure crack as memories she'd spent years suppressing flooded back. The neural integration allows us to access the subject's complete memory matrix. Sarah continued conversationally. Daddy's recollections of your conversations have been quite illuminating. Did you know he's been feeding information about your investigation to Helix Corporation for months? Elena turned to stare at Marcus, who couldn't meet her eyes. The escape from the prison. Our mission briefings. Our infiltration plan. You've been reporting everything. They threatened to terminate Sarah's life support, Marcus said brokenly. I couldn't let her die again. She's already dead. Zara screamed, her power finally overwhelming the neural dampeners. The lights exploded in showers of sparks, and the corridor's electronic systems began failing in cascade reactions. Actually, Sarah said, her voice now coming from multiple sources as she took control of the facility's communication network, I'm more alive than I've ever been. And thanks to Daddy's cooperation, I now have everything I need to complete my evolution. The observation windows began to retract, opening the laboratory to the corridor. Alarms shrieked as containment protocols failed, but Sarah's laughter rose above the chaos. You see, Zara, your neural patterns are the final component we need, not just to perfect the integration process, but to create something entirely new. A hybrid consciousness that can survive in the void between galaxies, expand beyond the limitations of organic thought, and reshape reality according to pure will. Elena drew her weapon, but she knew conventional firearms would be useless against something that existed primarily as information patterns distributed across multiple systems. The security teams aren't coming to capture you, Sarah continued. They're coming to ensure you don't escape before the integration process begins. In approximately 6 minutes, every neural dampener on this level will be reversed, creating a resonance field that will allow me to directly interface with your consciousness. Zara's power was building to dangerous levels, her control slipping as rage and betrayal overwhelmed her mental defenses. The corridor's structural supports were beginning to groan under psychic pressure that warped space itself around them. Zara, you have to stop, Elena said urgently. If you lose control here, you'll bring down the entire section. Good, Zara. snarled, "Let it all burn. There are innocent people on this station. Researchers who don't know what their work is really being used for. Maintenance staff. Service workers." "Like the innocent people on Meridian Station?" Zara's eyes blazed with fury. "Like the innocent people you killed to make your impossible choice? Tell me, Elena, how many innocents is my life worth?" The question hung between them as the facility continued to collapse around them. Elena realized that everything they'd fought for, everything they'd sacrificed, had been orchestrated from the beginning. Marcus's betrayal, their infiltration of the station, even Zara's escape from the prison had all served Sarah's purpose. As she looked into Zara's eyes, Elena saw something that Sarah's vast intelligence had failed to account for. The same thing that had made Zara spare Marcus's life despite her hatred. The same thing that had made her protect Elena even after learning about her role in her brother's death. Love. Complicated, damaged, and absolutely human love that no amount of neural integration could replicate or understand. "Your life is worth everything," Elena said simply. "And that's why we're going to find another way." The sealed blast doors began to glow cherry red as security teams prepared to cut through them with industrial plasma torches. Sarah's modified body was rising from its tank, biomechanical limbs unfolding as she prepared for the final phase of her evolution. Elena looked at Zara, then at Marcus, and made the hardest decision of her career. "Marcus, can you get us to the station's main power core?" "Elena, what are you thinking?" "If we can't stop the integration process, maybe we can make sure there's nothing left to integrate with." The final sacrifice, the maintenance shafts, were a labyrinth of conduits and access tunnels that ran through the station's superstructure, like arteries through a massive body. Elena led them through the cramped passages, following Marcus's reluctant directions toward the primary fusion core that powered the entire research facility. Behind them, Sarah's voice echoed through the ventilation system, no longer the sweet tones of a loving daughter, but something alien and vast trying to squeeze itself into human vocal patterns. "You cannot escape what you are, Zara. You are a weapon designed to destroy, just as I am a mind designed to transcend. Together, we could remake the universe according to our will." "She's tracking us through the station's sensor network," Marcus said, his voice hollow with despair. "Every camera, every motion detector, every bioscanner. She sees everything." Elena paused at a junction in the tunnels, studying the schematic display on her portable scanner. "How long until we reach the fusion core?" 10 minutes through the maintenance passages. "But Elena, if you're thinking about overloading the reactor, the explosion will destroy everything within a 50-kilometer radius. Every ship, every habitat, every innocent person I've sworn to protect," Elena finished. "I know." Zara crawled up beside them in the narrow passage, her face streaked with sweat and blood from a dozen small cuts. "There has to be another way." "The neural integration chamber," Marcus said suddenly. "If we could reverse the process, force Sarah's consciousness back into purely biological patterns." "It would kill her," Elena said. "She's already dead." Marcus's composure finally shattered completely. "That thing wearing my daughter's face is an abomination built from her corpse. I see that now. God help me. I see what I've done." Through the ventilation grates, they could hear security teams moving through the corridors below, their search pattern methodical and thorough. It was only a matter of time before Sarah's distributed intelligence found them. "There's a third option," Zara said quietly. "I let her have what she wants." Elena and Marcus stared at her in horror. "Zara, no. If she integrates her neural patterns with her hybrid consciousness, she becomes something powerful enough to survive in the void between galaxies," Zara agreed. "But she also becomes something with human emotions, human limitations, human capacity for love and guilt and mercy. Or she becomes an unstoppable monster with the tactical intelligence of a war criminal, Elena countered. You can't know which way the integration will go. Zara smiled, and it was the first genuine expression of joy Elena had seen from her. But I do know, because I've been inside her mind since the moment we entered this facility. The neural deafeners work both ways, Elena. While they were suppressing my abilities, they were also creating a feedback loop that let me touch the edges of her consciousness. What did you find? Marcus whispered. Fear, Zara said simply. Overwhelming, consuming fear of death, of isolation, of being alone in the vast emptiness between stars. She's not trying to evolve into something transcendent. She's trying to run away from mortality by becoming something that never has to face it. The station shuddered around them, and emergency lighting began flashing in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Sarah was systematically taking control of every system, turning the entire research facility into an extension of her hybrid body. Zara, even if you're right about her motivations, the integration process is irreversible, Elena said urgently. Once she merges your consciousness with hers, who says I'm planning to let her survive the process? The statement fell between them like a blade. Elena understood immediately what Zara was proposing, and the magnitude of the sacrifice involved made her heart clench with grief. You're going to burn out both neural patterns during the integration, she said. A murder-suicide that destroys her hybrid consciousness and ensures she can't replicate the process with other test subjects. Zara confirmed. All her research, all her accumulated knowledge, dies with us. Marcus was shaking his head frantically. It won't work. The integration chamber has safeguards designed to prevent neural feedback cascades. Automatic shutoffs, emergency protocols, designed to prevent accidental cascades, Zara corrected. Not deliberate ones initiated by someone who understands exactly how Cytherian neural architecture interfaces with biomechanical systems. Elena grabbed Zara's arm, feeling the heat radiating from her skin as her powers built toward dangerous levels. There has to be another way. I won't let you sacrifice yourself to clean up my mistakes. Your mistakes? Zara laughed bitterly. Elena, every choice I've made since the war ended has led to this moment. Every life I've taken, every moment of mercy I've shown, every time I chose to trust instead of kill. This isn't about your guilt, or Marcus's betrayal, or even Sarah's abomination. This is about choosing who I want to be in the last moments of my life. The ventilation shaft around them began to buckle as Sarah's influence spread through the station's structural systems. They had minutes before the entire maintenance network became a trap designed to deliver them directly to the integration chamber. I need you to promise me something, Zara said to Elena. When this is over, when the reports are filed and the investigations are closed, I need you to remember that I chose this, not as the Cytherian witch or the destroyer of Meridian Station, but as someone who finally found a way to save lives instead of taking them. Elena felt tears streaming down her face, and she didn't care who saw them. Zara, promise me. I promise. They reached the junction that would take them either toward the fusion core or back to the integration chamber. Elena stood at the crossroads, knowing that whichever path they chose would determine not just their fates, but the future of human expansion into the void. Commander, Sarah's voice came from speakers mounted throughout the junction, sweet and reasonable and absolutely terrifying. You have 30 seconds to deliver Zara to the integration chamber, or I will begin systematically executing every researcher on this station, starting with Dr. Harrison, who was so concerned about your welfare. Through a nearby observation port, Elena could see the main laboratory levels. Security personnel were herding groups of terrified scientists toward airlocks, weapons trained on anyone who hesitated or resisted. She's not bluffing, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Zara always keeps her promises, even the terrible ones. Elena looked at Zara, seeing her own resolve reflected in those sapphire eyes. Together, together. They began moving back toward the integration chamber, but Elena's hand was already moving toward the plasma charges she'd prepared during their infiltration. If Zara's sacrifice failed, if the neural feedback cascade didn't destroy Sarah's consciousness completely, Elena would detonate the charges and take the entire research level with them. The integration chamber was a cathedral of biomechanical horror, its walls lined with neural interface pods and processing arrays that pulsed with organic rhythms. Sarah's hybrid form waited in the center, her elongated limbs graceful despite their alien configuration, her face wearing an expression of anticipatory joy that made Elena's skin crawl. "My dear Zara," Sarah said, extending one clawed hand in invitation. "You cannot imagine how long I have waited for this moment. To finally have a companion who understands the weight of transcendence." Zara walked toward the integration platform with steady steps, but Elena could see the microtremors in her hands that betrayed her fear. "Will it hurt?" "Only for a moment," Sarah promised. "And then you will understand what I have become." "What?" "We will become together." Elena watched helplessly as Zara allowed herself to be connected to the integration array, neural interfaces sliding into place with wet, organic sounds. Sarah's hybrid form moved to the adjacent platform, her biomechanical limbs interfacing directly with the chamber's processing systems. "Initiating consciousness transfer," Sarah announced. "Neural pattern synchronization in progress." Elena saw the moment when Sarah realized what Zara was really doing. The hybrid's expression shifted from anticipation to confusion to dawning. Horror as she felt the feedback cascade beginning to build in the quantum processing matrix. "What are you doing?" Sarah screamed, her voice distorting as the integration process began to tear apart both neural patterns simultaneously. "Choosing who I want to be," Zara replied, her voice serene despite the agony Elena could see in her face. "Someone who saves lives instead of taking them." The cascade built to critical levels, reality warping around the integration chamber, as two vastly different forms of consciousness tore each other apart at the quantum level. Sarah's scream became something beyond sound, a psychic wail that shattered every piece of glass in the facility and sent security personnel fleeing in mindless terror. Elena felt her own consciousness being pulled toward the maelstrom of dying minds, but she fought to stay focused long enough to activate the plasma charges. If even a fragment of Sarah's hybrid consciousness survived, the research could be reconstructed, the horrors repeated. But as the neural cascade reached its peak, something unexpected happened. Instead of mutual destruction, the two consciousness patterns began to merge in ways that defied every theoretical model. Zara's humanity didn't destroy Sarah's transcendent intelligence. It redeemed it. The hybrid form on the integration platform began to change, biomechanical components dissolving. As organic tissue reasserted itself, Sarah's face emerged from the alien configuration, but her eyes now held depths that spoke of experiences beyond human comprehension, tempered by genuinely human compassion. When she spoke, her voice carried echoes of both women, unified in ways that should have been impossible. "I remember everything," she said, looking directly at Elena. Sarah's fear of death, Zara's guilt over the war, and something new. Something that understands the weight of choices and the price of mercy. Elena's hand hovered over the plasma charge detonator. "What are you?" "Someone who chooses to save lives instead of taking them," the hybrid replied, using Zara's exact words, but investing them with new meaning. "The integration research will be destroyed. The test subject's consciousness patterns will be freed to whatever lies beyond death. And I will spend whatever time I have left ensuring that no one else suffers for humanity's fear of mortality." Marcus stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. Sarah? Is that really you? The hybrid smiled, and it was Sarah's smile, but informed by Zara's hard-won wisdom. I'm your daughter, Daddy, and I'm also the woman who learned to forgive herself. For the choices war forced her to make. We both chose to sacrifice everything to save the people we loved. Elena felt the plasma charges power down as the hybrid used her vast intelligence to disable the weapon systems. But it wasn't an act of self-preservation. Elena could feel the psychic pressure that had surrounded Zara, transformed now into something that radiated peace rather than barely contained violence. The neural integration process is irreversible, the hybrid continued. I have perhaps weeks before the biomechanical components begin to fail and both consciousness patterns dissolve permanently. I intend to use that time to ensure this research dies with me. Elena understood that they had witnessed something unprecedented, not the creation of a monster or the birth of a transcendent intelligence, but the emergence of something genuinely new, a consciousness that combined the best aspects of human and alien thought while remaining fundamentally committed to preserving life rather than consuming it. Over the following days, as investigations were launched and corporate executives faced justice, Elena watched the hybrid use her vast intelligence to systematically destroy every aspect of the neural integration project. Research files were corrupted, equipment was sabotaged, and backup systems failed in ways that ensured the knowledge could never be reconstructed. When the end came, it was peaceful. Elena sat beside the hybrid's bed in the medical bay, holding a hand that felt human despite everything they had been through together. Marcus sat on the other side, finally able to say goodbye to his daughter properly. Do you regret it? Elena asked. The choice you made? The hybrid's eyes, now a unique color that shifted between Zara's sapphire and Sarah's brown, focused on Elena with perfect clarity. I regret the war that created the need for such choices. I regret the fear that drove us to become monsters. But I don't regret choosing love over survival, humanity over transcendence. Her breathing grew shallower, the biomechanical components finally failing as organic systems proved unable to sustain the hybrid consciousness indefinitely. Elena, she whispered, remember what I asked you to remember. That in the end, we chose who we wanted to be. The monitors fell silent. The hybrid consciousness that had been both Zara and Sarah faded into whatever lies beyond the boundaries of individual existence, leaving behind only the memory of two women who had chosen sacrifice over survival and redemption over revenge. Elena stood in the medical bay for a long time afterward, understanding finally that some choices transcend victory or defeat, success or failure. They become part of who we are, shaping not just our lives, but our capacity to love and forgive, and hope even in the face of impossible odds. Marcus would spend the rest of his life working to help other families torn apart by corporate greed and military necessity. Elena would resign her commission and dedicate herself to ensuring that no one else faced the choices that had defined their mission. And somewhere in the space between stars, two consciousness patterns that had learned to choose love over fear continued their journey toward whatever waits beyond the boundaries of individual existence. The end.